is great to be here. Join us any time, 6 p.m. every Wednesday night at the iconic Backbender Tavern. We'd love to see you here for the 2017 season. Now, big stuff. I made the mistake of doing this issue on the radio, and my goodness, what feedback did I get? The Predator-Free 2050 plan has just turned 1 year old. That's 33 years from now. How are we doing? We're on the panel. Let's start with Michael Wood, Labour.
Oh, it's typical National Party, a plan that we might get something in 2050, but actually there's nothing particularly to back it up. It's like their plans around water, it's like their plans around public transport in Auckland. Good at plans, very little delivery.
Good to be ambitious though, Michael. It's good to be ambitious.
Yeah, it's good to be ambitious, but it's not enough by itself. And look, this government has seen cuts to the Department of Conservation over its term. They've only just got back to the real level of funding they had back in 2008. I know rangers who have walked away from the Department of Conservation because they're so stretched for resources and so frustrated. Actually resource them properly and they'll do the job.
Richard Prosser.
It is.
Okay, Richard Prosser.
Right,
2015 Predator-Free.
2050 Predator-Free is so unrealistic as to be bordering on the irrational. No human society in history has ever eradicated the rat. We are not going to be the first, and we are certainly not going to be the first by spending the next 33 years.
Do we need 1080 to make it happen?
No, we do not. No, we do not. We're not going to become predator-free by spending the next 33 years dumping a broad-spectrum ecotoxin all over this country.
Listen here, Richard, listen here. The Parliamentary Commission for the Environment said the situation is desperate. 1 in every 3 species is not far off following the moa in extinction. I put it to you that we need 1080, and we need more of it.
If you look at the extinction patterns in this country, there were about 30 species went extinct in the 2,000 years before Maori arrived. There were another 38 species that went extinct between Maori arriving and Europeans arriving, 19 species between Europeans arriving and now, 4 in the last century. The last one was in 1972. The last one on the mainland was the Huia in 1907.
That's enough, you've lost me. Marama, do we need 1080? Do we need it?
The situation is bad, which is why yesterday in Te Wao, in Waitakere Rangers, the Greens announced that we would double the funding for DOC and double the amount of rangers so that we can strengthen the ground control.
What about this question? 1 in 3 species, is the situation desperate? More 1080.
We need to strengthen the ground control.
More 1080?
We want to work towards less aerial drops.
You're not answering,
our tourist levy would help the research and
you haven't answered the question. Maureen, more 1080.
Look, I have a wee bit
answer the question.
Can I answer it?
Every species currently...
I'm a possum trapper in native bush in my community, and we can do that because there are people around. But in those massive wilderness areas we've got, I've seen the damage possums do. If we don't actually get in there
simply not true.
with systemic poison,
we don't go in there. We don't go in and do the surveys.
So the answer is yes.
Okay,
we don't know what lives out there because we don't do the surveys. We don't go out. These areas that are called inaccessible. Since the invention of the helicopter, no part of New Zealand is inaccessible. However, they don't do the pre-counts, they don't do the post-counts, they simply make a guess and go and dump poison on it.
Richard, I'll come back to you, Maureen and Marama, but let's go to the expert here. Charlotte.
Yes, we've got Kevin Hackwell from Forest and Bird. What do you think about... Okay, first question. Is it possible to go predator-free by 2050?
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, we're actually on track in New Zealand to go predator-free before 2050. Mr. Prosser's wrong when he says you can't eradicate rats. New Zealand pioneered rat eradication. We've eradicated rats from over 100 islands around New Zealand, and we're on track
it's impossible
to do
on the mainland.
We are on track
on the
to do
mainland.
it. Yes, we can. Yes.
Do we need 1080 to get rid of the pests by 2050?
1080 is one of the tools we're using, and we're using 1080 mainly for control at the moment. When we actually do eradications, we don't use 1080. We use Predatorfree, we use an anticoagulant, as it turns out. So 1080 has not been used for eradication, it's been used for control. And I think 1080 is a really important part of the toolbox, and we'll use it probably to help us go predator-free. But it won't just be 1080, it'll be other things too. No.
What other things?
Oh, well,
like those crazy fences that lock in the pests.
Yeah, well, that's one of it. But actually, no, you're going to do it beyond the fences. You know, you're going to be doing, baits. It's going to be baits mainly, but there's going to be things like, we may well do things like gene drive. There'll be some things, there'll be other things we'll do, which we're going to have to be very careful about, but there will be tools, a whole range of tools. We have these self-setting traps, etc. You know, there'll be a whole pile of stuff.
Interesting. So Forest and Bird say yes by 2050.
All right, good on Charlotte. Thank you very much, Kevin. Thanks for coming too, by the way. Maureen, you heard what was there. You know, I'm actually really shocked by the stats here. I mean, reading is astonishing. 25 million native birds are killed each year by predators like possums, rats and stoats. Do you think we're putting enough funding into the institutions that guard our native birds?
We're actually getting much better at the programs, and that's what Predator-Free 2050 is all about, Wallace, because what we're drawing in the community and getting them to help us with the eradication.
You're from the West Coast. What do you see? What do you see?
I live in an area that is 87% DOC estate, so I understand that there are problems out there, and we also need to have the community on board with the eradication.
Marama, you heard what Maureen said. She sees it. She's from the West Coast.
This government's predator-free plan is all talk and no muscle. Literally no muscle, because again, DOC has cut the funding and DOC rangers are leaving, and like I said, the Greens would double the amount of rangers so we can do the self-set trapping work. So we can
to the
have those other
5,000
options.
rats we caught here
Go
in
around the
Wellington.
panel. Richard Prosser, you folk might well be part of the next government. Will, under your watch, will 1080 be gone by lunchtime?
We will end the use of 1080. We will not compromise our pest control in doing so. We will replace it with other substances and with other methods. With the good-natured traps are just brilliant.
Michael?
There are other poisons that can be used that are species-specific, that are not ecotoxic.
Okay, gone by lunchtime, 1080. Very interesting. Michael Wood, what do you make
We're
of
a
it?
party that follows evidence, and the evidence that we have seen tells us that 1080 is needed to get on top of 70 million possums devastating our native bush
There were
and
never
species.
70 million
And that's the
possums.
evidence
There's
that we
only
see.
about 30.
That's
Only
why
about
that's our
30 at the
policy.
most.
Divisive
as many as
topic.
70 million.
Charlotte, why don't you go to the audience, ask about 1080, what do people think generally? Yes or no to 1080 as part of the toolbox?
What do you think? Yes or no to 1080?
If it's in the toolkit and there's evidence that it works in creating a predator-free New Zealand, then yes.
Interesting. Let's keep going. Oh, you're avoiding me. No. What do you think? 1080, yes or no?
Yes. Yeah.
1080, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Toitu he whenua. No 1080.
No 1080? Why?
What's the point in dropping poison on our land? It doesn't do anything for me.
To save our birds.
Sorry, when was the last time you spent time in the bush?
Do you go in the bush?
I've just come back from Te Uruwera, spending a year teaching and living in there. So, yeah, I've been there and I've seen the damage that 1080 can do.
Interesting. Thank you.
Back to you, Wallace.
Wow. What do you think? Hashtag backbenchers with an ES. Stay with us. Free range in Aotearoa. Is it really free range?
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.